si no saben la emoción que tengo hoy, I'm so excited. So excited, I can't hardly contain it. We have a very special guest today, not just a female powerhouse, because you really are a great representative of not just the gamer world, but Rocket League, setting the standards. We have the amazing Herculyse in the house, everybody. We welcome her. Welcome to my studio, lovely.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Honestly, this is so cool. I love your setup.
Do you like the setup?
Yeah.
You know, who would have thought that when I saw you, because I know this amazing, beautiful, talented girl since you were in high school.
Yeah. It was like 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Can't believe I'm saying that.
Isn't that amazing? How time flies.
That's so fast.
So, back in the day, right, did you think you were going to become Rocket League representative, setting up milestones? How does this even start? How does one start in?
Because of my high school ex-boyfriend.
Are you serious? So this goes back to the time I knew you, the time I met her. She was kicking it all the way on the stage, and then you meet this guy and he introduces you to Rocket League and to gaming?
That's
how it started?
He played Rocket League, and I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. I gamed. I'd played with Cindy and Chase and Robbie and everybody when I was younger, but that was like on Xbox and like other stuff. And yeah, my ex played, and then I think it was like our senior year of high school. My freshman year of college, he asked if I wanted to go see the World Championship, and I was like, oh, I've never like seen this, I never like paid attention to it, but I'm like a very down person.
Yeah.
And so I was like, sure, I'll go, and so we went, and then I'm just a very social person, and I ended up making a lot of friends with like just by chance and like with the right people, and we ended up breaking up, and I actually met my now ex, but like then boyfriend that night.
That's the power of
yeah,
believing that you're gonna meet the right people at the right time, right?
Yeah. So we ended up meeting that night, and then it just all kind of went from there. Just a lot of lucky accidents kind of turned into this.
And you notice you said accidents. Accidents.
Yeah.
Accidents! And it's only gonna get better.
Mm-hmm.
We were briefly talking over coffee because I had I'm just so blessed. I had the pleasure of enjoying your company last night for my son's birthday party, by the way, which happens to have fallen on a time she's jet lagged from Austria. And she was here like you wouldn't have known that you just flew all those hours. And then this morning we were talking over coffee about how it had started, and look at you look fresh as a freaking flower, as a carnation.
I'm trying to look awake. It's the lighting. The lighting
It's
makes
the lighting.
me look awake.
So I know you got quite a bit of following. I was checking out your social media, right? And so once you get that kind of popularity, and I know they're actual followers, because a lot of people, aren't necessarily real followers, you interact with these people. How has this changed your life in being in the public eye, especially?
Yeah, I mean, I never ever in my life thought I'd be in a situation where I'd even have to think about being in the public eye. Everybody growing up, we were like, oh, we want to be famous, or I'm going to be a famous actress or whatever after theater in high school, but you never think anything's actually going to happen. I grew up pretty nonverbal.
Yeah.
And so it freaked people out when I even I started off in dance because I could still be around people, but I didn't have to talk. I preferred doing things where I didn't have to talk. My mom kind of used theater as speech therapy. She was it'll get her to talk.
I love her.
And it worked.
Brilliant.
And so, yeah, Pratt ended up getting me to talk, and that kind of helped with everything. But I was always a very anxious person, and after growing a following, it all was very, very fast, and I wasn't used to it at all.
Yeah.
Made me a much more anxious person. But I think like the older I got, it felt more almost normal. I feel like it only times like we talked about it and over coffee, and like I had told you, like there's times where like it doesn't feel real. Like sometimes it feels like a game. Like you're like, oh, I'm like collecting points or something. Like followers don't feel real until they find you in real life, and then you're like, oh, this is. There's people online that I have no idea who you are, but you know like all of this stuff about me.
Right.
And it is kind of freaky when you think about it like that. It feels like a Black Mirror episode, low-key.
Doesn't really. So you get recognized at the airport over coffee at Starbucks. Tell me about the one experience you're like, oh my god, this really did happen.
Honestly, the most recent one that was like kind of like whoa was I was in Austin. This was a couple months back, like end of last year.
Yeah.
And there was a Joji concert, and I really love Joji. I just had never taken the time to go see him in concert. And I just recently started going to concerts by myself and like doing things on my own. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go to the Joji concert, but I was chickening out, and I was like calling my friends, and I was like, hey, like, let's go to the Joji concert. And they're like, oh, we're trying, but like we're not gonna make it in time. And I'm like, oh, it's fine, like I just won't go. So I went to Starbucks, and I was just working. And then as I'm leaving, I was walking back to my car, and these guys stopped me, like a group of guys, and I got kind of freaked out. And then they were like, Herculyse? And I was like, what? And because like I'd only been in Austin for like a week, and they were like, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna move here, I just haven't announced it yet. And they were like, oh my god. And they were like, what are you doing downtown? And I was like, oh, I was just working like at the Starbucks. And I was like, what are y'all doing? And they were like, oh, we're going to the Joji concert, that's why we're on scooters.
What?
And I was like, I wanted to go to that. And they were like, we have an extra ticket, our friend bailed. And they were like, do you want to come with us to the Joji concert? And I was like, sure,
this girl.
And so I went to the Joji concert with like a group of my followers, and that was like the most random cool thing that's like happened.
So nobody's missed. You got, how many were there? 5, 6 guys as bodyguards?
Yeah.
Nobody's messing with Herculyse under their watch. That is such a cool experience.
Yeah.
That is such a cool experience. Wow. So it's very niche. Now we're saying this, right? And you've made some milestones. In fact, congratulations. We were speaking this morning. You would be the first female. One of the first?
Yeah, one of the first. There's so the way it works, if you guys didn't know, in Rocket League,
tell us about that.
Has in most esports, it's been pretty normalized that women are casters as well. But it used to be that like women were just interviewers, and that was the whole thing. And Rocket League's had women interviewers and all of that before, but this past year we had our first female caster join the team, but she hadn't casted the LAN yet. And it was this huge big deal though that a woman had like gotten onto the team.
Right.
And everybody just kept saying like, oh, Herc, like you're up next. And I was like, no, there's no way. Like minimum somebody has been casting to like make it on this team is like 5 years. And I got my email last week to do it. And I was like, oh my god, like I'm gonna be one of the first women ever. And it's like really cool because like also I'll be the first Hispanic woman to do it as well.
Wow.
Like ever.
I got chills.
And so like you get to like have that representation. It's also the first year that Mexico's ever had a team as well. So like that being side and side is like really cool. And
so you're going down in history. You realize what you're doing. You realize how many little girls one are watching.
It's it honestly I didn't used to think about that until I did like whenever I go to the lands, people will come up to me and talk to me, but I remember one year, it was the year that I went on stage for the first time, and a bunch of girls were coming up to me. And I knew girls went to the land, but they never really came up to me. And a bunch of girls were coming up to me, and they were like, when do you go back on? And I was like, oh, it was just a one-time thing. And they were like, no, they were like, I've never seen a girl. Like, it's nice to, like, see someone there. And that was kind of, like, the starting motivation of, like, oh my gosh, like, they want to see people the way I wanted to see someone.
Yeah.
Except the difference is I'm going to be the person that we all wanted. And then that hopefully is, like, just opening a door for the other girls to come in with me.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's really cool.
You're writing history. You're writing history, and we'll get to watch you grow because you're going places. I've heard all about you, and now you're telling me first person, and I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, where do you go? Like, where do you see yourself?
Ooh.
Where is there, the sky's the limit? Clearly, you're breaking barriers, right?
Yeah, right. Well, right now the goal is RLCS. Like, that's been the dream. I just I've been very headstrong that I want to be I want to be the best woman caster that's been on the team ever. And specifically caster, I've had the opportunities where it's like, would you like to interview? Would you like to do it? I could have gone way earlier through that route, but I've been very honest with the game and the devs from day one. Like, if I'm ever invited, I want to be invited as a caster. I'm not gonna play the whole other routes, especially if I'm not interested in it. Because there's girls that are very into interviewing and hosting, and like, that's just not me. I love the storytelling aspect. I love hyping the game up, and right now the goal is just cast my first LAN in front of everyone, and I want to be the girl. Like, my whole thing is like, in Rocket League, it's every game has a different outfit style. So like in League of Legends, they dress very cool and hip and have like these like interesting fits, and like I don't know, like CS is a little bit more laid back, but Rocket League is known for wearing suits. And even the girls in past that have like been on the team, like, they wear suits. But my one goal is I want to show up to a LAN for the first time in a mini skirt Chanel fit combo with heels. And I want to cast my first match in like huge heels and a skirt and be screaming with my hair done, and I want pictures of that. So
it's gonna happen. So I gotta tell you a little secret. I've had bands come into my studio that go on to win awards, and I've spoken to reality. So I'm speaking it into reality for you that it will happen. You will set the standard, and that's gonna be the standard in 10, 15 years. We're like, no, I am the Chanel girl because she did it, and you're gonna set the standard in that too. So I'm believing it for you. It's gonna happen. In fact, thank you, universe, because it already happened. See? Speaking of that, who's the most famous follower you have?
Ooh,
And now you've got a ton of them.
I know, you're just saying.
And you were like, oh my god, how you actually interacted with them?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm trying to think. It's an esport thing. Oh no, actually no. I think my most famous follower is Meg D'Angelo. She is a very famous beauty YouTuber, like back in the old days.
Yeah.
And I looked up to her so much. Like, she was like the beauty YouTuber I would watch all the time. And I got to work with NYX Cosmetics, and we would do my makeup and everything. And we went to a party, and I told my manager, I was like, oh, I'm a huge fan. And she literally just was like, can I see her phone? And I was like, sure. And so she like took my phone and she just typed her name in and she followed me. And I was like, oh my gosh. Wow. And so, yeah, Meg D'Angelo follows me on Instagram. That's the craziest one, I think.
Wow. So growing up, that is somebody you looked up to.
And she's like not esports. She's like normal YouTube lifestyle, which is kind of crazy when those worlds collided. So,
you know, it's interesting how humble and just down to earth you are. That is not easy to find. You remind me of Zelina, like starstruck, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're really the star. And that's a quality. That's a huge quality. Even from knowing you back in the day that you haven't lost. So that's pretty darn amazing. So you're now in San Antonio. We're based out of San Antonio, everybody. So we're going to enjoy you. But you're based out of Austin, right? So how do you get how does one monetize? Tell us a little for those of us that aren't familiar.
Yeah, well, in esports, your job is literally 24/7. I was talking about it with our friend Dalton this morning as well. I was like, literally, he was like, well, so like, what does your day look like? And I was like, it literally starts from the moment I open my eyes until I close. But the trade-off is if I want to, have an off day, I can just say, okay, I'm canceling everything today, or I'm not scheduling anything today, and like I can just go. Like, for example, like yesterday, like I was like, oh, I'm gonna stream, and then Sinua was like, oh, I'm having a birthday thing, and I was like, okay, I'm just not gonna stream. I'm like, I was like, I'll go. But like monetizing it, it's like you're constantly working a million jobs to make enough, and then once you reach a certain point, you don't really have to stress out that bad. I feel like the not easiest, but the most consistent way is like when a creator or caster or somebody signs to an organization to rep them, and that's like, at least you have like that monthly income, and then you can build off that base each month. Lots of sponsorship things as well. I have 2 agency teams, so I have like my casting management and then my influencer management, and they both do their jobs in terms of like they get me gigs to cast and host, and the other people are like, okay, this is what you're gonna do on stream to make money. And then of course my lovely community, whenever I stream, people sub or gift subs, and it's just working a million jobs. I even reached a point where I was like, man, for some spice in my life, I might go back to Bill Miller morning shifts for fun, just to like do something different a little. Because I felt like I had almost too much time on my hands once I stopped streaming full time. I was like, oh, I could pick up a shift or two, for the breakfast rushes.
Everybody's going there for breakfast. That's what's gonna happen. That's pretty amazing. So that's what keeps you humble as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thanks for explaining that. I had no really idea. I knew sponsorships, but for those that are up and coming, again, you're setting the standard for young boys and girls, the future of it. What would you recommend to them? How should they? And as again, technology is constantly changing. Things are changing and moving quickly. What would be your, what would you tell them? How can they get started? What do they need to do?
I think like before anybody starts, I've said this from the beginning. I've always told people, like, I'm very big on like, even though you can start at 13, I usually say like, please don't start till like 16.
Really?
I've never really agreed with like the little kids doing it. I think it's just too much to happen, especially if you do get your break and you go viral, then it's like you're 13 dealing with like hundreds of thousands of people coming at you. Yeah. And like that's a lot. Like for me to be struggling at like 21 with it, like I can't. Me at 13 would not have survived that. But like I always tell people, you do it for fun. You always do it for fun. Never go into it with the intention of trying to become famous or anything. You always just do it for fun. You should enjoy it when you have 1 follower or 1 million followers. Oh, wow. The same amount. It should be enjoyed the same amount. And the number one thing I tell people, especially if they already are working, is please don't quit your jobs. Like, I'm very, very transparent about it. I tell people all the time, I did not quit my job until I was making like 10 times more than what I was at my normal job. And I didn't quit until I made it consistently for a year. Oh, I refused to like risk or anything, because I see people do it a lot of the times. They'll be like, oh, like I'll drop, $8,000 on a computer and, $5,000 on all this equipment and all this stuff. And then they'll have like 2 followers and they're like, okay, but I have everything. Yeah. Why isn't it working? And I'm like, babes, I started with a refurbished MacBook that I got on eBay and my Xbox and my TV behind me. Yeah. I was like, I didn't even have a camera. I was just playing off my TV. Wow. I was like, you don't have to have all the nicest things to get started. So I feel like a lot of people put like way too much pressure on themselves when they start. And I always just tell them, like, you just gotta do it for fun. If it turns into a job, great, and I'm letting you know now, it becomes less fun once it's your job. You want to enjoy the process. Yes. So
that's huge. And coming from you, I know they're listening. So, Herculyse. Why the name? Why the name? I want to know.
My favorite streamer when I first started, her name's Pokimane. And it's actually pronounced Pokemon. because her name is Iman.
Oh,
and she wanted to incorporate her real name into her gamer tag, and it's like this super iconic name. Everybody remembers Pokemon, and like it doesn't matter who you are. It's not like they're having to go out of the way and be like, oh, my favorite person is Beast Boss 62, and I gotta remember all these numbers and blah blah blah. It's like you think Pokemon the same way you would be like Taylor Swift or something.
Right.
And so when I first started, I've always had this mentality, but I'm like, if you're gonna do something, you act like you already have it. And so I was like, I have to have a name that's going to be super iconic. Everybody's gonna remember it. It's super easy. And I knew, like, I've always loved my name. Like, I've always loved the name Elise. I think it's cool. I like the spelling with the Y. But I knew I didn't want to use Elise.
Right.
And so I literally just sat on Google and I was like, words that rhyme with Elise. And then, like, all these words were coming up. And then Hercules popped up. And I was like, what have I was like, my name literally sounds out Elise. I was like, why do I not just spell it with my name? And it's like Pokemon level simple. And then I went on every platform. Like, I made a TikTok that night. Made a TikTok and an Instagram and a Twitter, and it wasn't taken anywhere except for Twitter. Like, one girl had it. And so I just put an extra E at the end. I got it everywhere else. And I was like, I remember sitting there thinking, Hercules is the kind of name that, like, you hear and you remember. Like, it's just like, it's a simple one-word name. And so, to me, I was always just like, oh, people are going to remember this name. Like, I'm going to be so famous, and people are going to be like, yeah, Hercules. And yeah, I was just like, I need an iconic name that has my name involved, and yeah.
That was brilliant. I remembered it. Yeah, you gave it. I guess I had you. I'm like, I want to know all your social media platforms, and so that's so easy. Hercules, and I mentally see you, Hercules, right? as a cute little girl with muscles. That's what comes to my mind.
I've had so many interactions with like people. Like, we'll have meetings, or like people will write my managers and like, hey, we want to set up a meeting with Herc or whatever, and then like I'll show up on the call, and they're like, what? Who is this? Yeah. And then I'm like, I'm Hercules, and they're like, yo, we were expecting like this big guy to show up. I'm like, no, it's me. I'm the person that's been doing it all. And they're like, that's so much cooler.
That is so much cooler because you're that big. You are really that big and bigger. So we're talking about traveling, and you said you travel quite a lot. Would you say that's one of the biggest things to get adjusted to? How do you handle all that?
Yeah, I mean, I took my first trip traveling when I was like 16, and I went to Scotland with a bunch of friends from church, and I loved it. And I always knew I would do it again. I literally spent all of high school like with one goal to like go to university in Scotland, and I wanted to study English. And I was like, okay, that's the plan. And then, of course, like, life happens, whatever, and I ended up staying in Texas. And when I took my first trip to Vegas, which was where I had met my, well, now ex, but at the time boyfriend, I didn't know he was Austrian when I met him. And I don't know why. He had an accent and everything. Like, you're not from here. But I was just like, I just assumed. And then, it was literally, I hadn't traveled since that Scotland trip when I was a kid, and now I was 21. And the next month had been like, hey, I have a tournament in Germany. If I bought you a ticket, would you like to go? What? And I was like, I've never traveled by myself. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. And he was like, you should be fine. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, whatever. And so I got my passport, and I just went to the airport, and I was like, okay, let's go through this process, whatever. And like, after a few trips, I was like, oh, this is nothing. Like, I can just do this all the time.
I got this.
Honestly, it didn't hit until I turned like 25 that I was like, man, sitting in these chairs for like 15 hours is like not it. Yeah. But for me, it was never bad. Especially, which I think is really weird for somebody that has as much like anxiety as I do. Yeah. Like, that I wasn't freaking out, but yeah, no, I definitely adjusted very, very quickly. I think more than like the average person would. I feel like a lot of my friends freak out
Yeah.
with traveling, and my parents freak out.
Especially the younger you are, right?
Bye.
But they are your biggest supporters.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. So what's next? Is there any events coming up? Tell us about your streaming hours. Where can they find you?
Well, I'm Herculyse everywhere, and
With a Y, y'all.
with a Y. And,
which we're gonna be posting all your links.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just I posted online. I just moved back to the U.S. Most of y'all know Yukio and I broke up, and so I'm moving back out here to NA. And yeah, I'm going full time for the first time in like 2 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
So like February is supposed to be like first month I'm like going all out back into streaming and casting. We're waiting on dates for a potential thing I might be signing up for.
Be on the lookout!
So y'all will hear about that.
You heard it here first.
Hopefully by the time this is posted, I'll know if I made it or not. But if I'll let her know. But
we'll know.
by the time this comes out, hopefully we'll know or not if I made RLCS this year for the first time. So
thank you, universe. She's in it. She's killing it. Hey!
so yeah, if I make RLCS, then that's what I would be doing all year, every day. But yeah, just enjoying posting and streaming and traveling.
Well, you're doing a great job at it, and you make it seem so easy and so flawless. And so thank you for that. It's been a pleasure having you in my casa. No, this is always your home. So when premieres or things or you just want to chat and catch on, this is always your studio. So know that you have an open door here.
I love it here. This place is so cool. I know it's the sweetest. I'm so happy to reconnected with people and be back.
Yes, just chat. We'll have coffee or
Yeah.
we'll hang out in the studio or what have you. But I know whatever you decide to do or what comes your way is meant to be, and it's going to be great because we both believe in that. So thank you, Elise, for being here. Everybody, I only bring you the best, and I'm so excited to have her. And please follow her on all the links. And thank you again for being here. Chicos, los amo. Una premiere de viernes. You know, I love you. Thanks for the follows. Thanks for the likes. And we're going to be watching. We're all watching. Female empowerment today. All right, mamita. Dios te bendiga. Muchas gracias. And it's a wrap. Bye.
Bye bye.